Hello again, everybody, and Ben, thank you as always for having me on the show. So let's get straight into the footy for this weekend. In round 13, we had the 8 games played, so only 2 teams on the bye this week. It was Fremantle and St Kilda, so they are the 2 teams on the bye. We start on Thursday night with Western Bulldogs as Hawthorn, and this is a game that I thought Doggies should have had the upper hand and definitely should have won this one against a Hawthorn team who are losing bodies by the week at this point. But Hawthorn staying in the fight, staying in the game, and proving they are the team who they all think they are, the team that people think they believe that they are, believe that they can be, and as a team who are going to be in that top 8 come the end of August and as we play finals footy into September. How far they go is anyone's guess, but they are definitely right in the mix. So in this one, the final score, Western Bulldogs 8-11-59, Hawthorn 12-9-81. This was very much a game for Hawthorn to show that, okay, maybe they have lost bodies and they've needed to pick up somewhere, and they have. So completely dominated this game from start to finish. Well, there were little periods where the Doggies were able to wrestle some control back. It was only in brief 5-minute stints where Hawthorn was able to quickly return the momentum back into their favour, and that's where you see them pick up the win in this one. So Hawthorn, a very, very, very big win for them, proving the doubters, including myself, wrong about them. Doggies, however, unfortunately suffering a loss against a team who really they should have done a lot better again. My player of the game for this one, it is going to go to Hawthorn. It is going to go to Mabior Chol. 63 AFL fantasy for Mabior Chol. 4 goals from 11 touches, 5 kicks, 6 handballs, 3 marks, 2 tackles, and 1 hit out for the Hawthorn forward. And now we move straight into the Friday game, and it was an absolute classic at the Adelaide Oval between the Crows and the Lions. Final score in this one, Adelaide sneaking over the line just 10-8-68, Brisbane 8-15-63 after an absolutely horrid, dismal last quarter on a goal-kicking front from the Lions. Definitely should have been able to put the Crows away in this one, but final quarter for Brisbane, they kick 8 points, no goals, 8 points for Brisbane to the Crows, 5 goal in that final quarter. So Crows coming over that final quarter and taking the game back to their favour, taking the win in the end after Brisbane had a horrible finish, although with that said, Crows had a horrible start first quarter, no goals, 6 for the Crows. So probably a little bit of goal kicking practice during the week for both teams as they move forward on to next week. From this one, I think Crows right now definitely a team in the mix, and I think that Brisbane, are still going to be a threat no matter what. This is a loss, but this is a loss against a team who are playing at home, a team who are in the mix as the Crows are. Crows probably could have won some of those earlier ones. They could have been really, really up in the mix. I think they beat GWS, but if they beat Gold Coast, if they beat Collingwood, if they beat Geelong, they would be first by a game and a half at this point. Unfortunately, not the case for the Crows, but a big win nonetheless. Brisbane, as I said, unfortunate loss. Bad kicking killed you in the end as you have that negative scoreline differential. We'll go to the player of the game in this one, and it's going to be from the Lions. It's going to be Will Ashcroft. 113 AFL fantasy, 31 touches, 13 kicks, 18 handballs, 4 marks, 7 tackles for the young Lion. On to the Saturday action for round 13. Unlucky 13 it was for the Richmond Tigers as they play the Sydney Swans at the MCG, losing this one quite comfortably to the Swans 4-11-36, 11-14 80 to the Sydney Swans. Sydney, big win for them over a weak, struggling Richmond team. A Richmond team who didn't really look at any point to be in this contest after half-time. I think the first half, as we see, very, very well played from both sides. Richmond, though we see where they fall off, it's in that second quarter. They had a very good start, taking the lead into quarter time, but then they fall off in the second quarter, having 3 points only to 3 goals, 5 for the Swans in that second quarter, where Sydney was able to run away with the game from that point. So, Richmond, very disappointing performance from them. Sydney, however, a team who are still not in the mix by any means, but a strong performance by them gets them back into the brains and into the mouths of people commentating and analysing the footy as we do week to week here on the BJ Footy Show. So Sydney, well done on the big win. Unfortunately, loss for Richmond not able to continue that form they've had in the early season, and it's starting to fall away a little bit for them now. Again, that scoreline differential of 1 to 3, it's never acceptable, especially when you're playing a team like Sydney who can beat you at any day, and they are dangerous. Sydney, it's a smorgasbord of selections here for player of the game, but I'm going to go Brody Grundy. 139 AFL fantasy, 1 goal, 19 touches, 12 kicks, 7 handballs, 5 marks, 6 tackles, and 51 hit out for the Sydney Ruckman. Moving on to the second game on the Saturday, and this is one that could be a semi or prelim preview between the Cats and the Suns down at Cardinia Park at Geelong. Now, the Cats go into this one very, very motivated to keep their form going, keep their run going. They've had some very, very good performances here in the last couple of weeks. Gold Coast is the same. A lot of good performances from both of these sides. This one comes down to who can hold their nerve against a real top-class opposition. We have the old head in the Cats in terms of playoff finals football against the new boys in contention, the Gold Coast Suns. Who holds their lid? It was the Cats who held on in the end, winning by 4 goals, 9-7-61 to Gold Coast 5-7-37. So Geelong was 4 goals. It was a very low scoring 4 goals. So when I say that 4 goals can be something closer to a 6-7 goal game in this case when the scores are so low. But Geelong are the absolute professionals doing business as business does, and they get another win. They remain perfect at home against Gold Coast. Gold Coast, this is a big loss for them, I think. This is one where they really need to look in the mirror and go, this is what the big boys are up to now that we're up to the mid-season. The big boys aren't playing around anymore. We know what they're up to now. We know what we're going against in September. Gold Coast should still make September, but they need to be prepared for these kind of challenges away. They can't just have it all their own way down on the Gold Coast at Carrara. So they need to be able to win away. This has been their struggle the last couple of years. This is, even if they make it in finals, this is going to be what kills them in the end. But we will go into my player of the game now for this game, and it's going to be Max Holm from Geelong. 146 AFL fantasy, 40 touches, 25 kicks, 15 handballs, 6 marks and 5 tackles for the Geelong player there. So Max Holm getting the player of the game in that one. Now we move to the Saturday night football. We move to Saturday night football from Canberra between GWS and Port Adelaide, and this was one where it looked like it was going to be one-way traffic, but it was not to be. Final score in this one, the much favoured GWS 7-8-50 to the Port Adelaide Football Club 9-12-66. Port Adelaide your winners here by 16 points in the nation's capital, and this was done because Port Adelaide held their nerve. They stayed in the contest when the going got tough. They stayed in the game. This is what's been escaping Port Adelaide the last couple of weeks, the last couple of seasons, especially the last couple of years as well. Even though they had those big winning streaks the last couple of years, when they have tough games, they often find a way to weasel out of the contest. Wasn't the case in this one. They hang tough, they take up the challenge, they get the win. GWS, shock loss for them, but more importantly was the loss of some more key players. Their injury list is starting to sum out, and this is, I said it last week, I'm going to say it again. They have lost players. They have lost major players to not other sides who are at the bottom of the stack. They have lost players to other sides who are contending in Adelaide and Collingwood, and that hurts you. And now they're losing bodies at the moment as well, and that's hurting them as well. So this is crunch time for GWS. I could easily see them falling out of the 8 come the end of this season. Port Adelaide I don't think will get in. I think you're looking at maybe a Doggies or a Fremantle who jump in there, but it could be the end of the era for GWS as things currently stand. We'll go to my player of the game for this one, and it will be Connor Rose from Port Adelaide. 121 AFL fantasy, 1 goal, 28 touches, 17 kicks, 11 handballs, 7 marks and 6 tackles for the Port Adelaide captain. Now we jump into Sunday footy, and we have the first in-season premiership counting game at Hands Oval in Bunbury, West Australia, as North Melbourne are your home teams after buying the rights to their home game in West Australia from West Coast against the West Coast Eagles, who are a team who are both these teams are at the bottom of the stack at the moment. So it was a very, very up and down game all day. West Coast came out, kicked 5 points in the first quarter, then 1 goal 3 in the second quarter, and they finished the first half at 1 goal 8. North Melbourne, 3 goals in the first quarter, 1 point in the second quarter. Then we see West Coast take hold of the game. It was a gritty, ugly game, but West Coast take hold of this game in the second half in that third quarter. They go 4-6, which still is not great, but it's able to push the lead out quite a bit in a close, low-scoring battle. North Melbourne coming back in the final quarter, though. West Coast final quarter was 1-2. North Melbourne's final quarter, 4-5. So a real sloppy encounter in Hansover and Bunbury between two of the lower sides of this season. The final scores: North Melbourne 9-8-62, West Coast 6-16-52. West Coast definitely should have won this one, but they let it slip away with some ugly, inaccurate kicking down in Bunbury. We'll go to my player of the game now, and it's going to be Tristan Sherry from North Melbourne. 111 AFL fantasy, 22 touches, 8 kick, 14 handballs, 6 tackles, and 37 hit out for the North Ruckman. Now we go to the second game on Sunday for round 13. It's between Carlton and Essendon at the MCG. A late start for this one, 6:50 start in Melbourne on Sunday due to the King's birthday public holiday that we'll get to in a minute. But this was one where Carlton came out of the blocks real strong, 6 goals in the first quarter. Essendon only 1, leaving Essendon for dead in the first quarter. But the Bombers slowly closed the contest. So it's a 3-2 quarter in favour of the Bombers in the second. Then in the third, it's a 4-1 favour to the Bombers in the third. Final quarter, 2-3 favour of the Bombers in the last quarter. But Carlton's scoring pressure, scoreboard pressure, adding up with their behinds as well, being what gets them across the line here by 8 points. The final score here, the Carlton Blues 11-12-78 to Essendon 11-4-70. So it was like those final points, those points that mattered so much in the end that kept the Blues afloat. And this is why do we have behinds? And this is exactly why, because if we didn't have behinds, this game would finish 11 goals each. So those 1-pointers ending up crucial there in the end for the Navy Blues. We go to my player of the game in this one, and it'll be Sam Doherty in this one. 112 AFL fantasy, 26 touches, 21 kick, 5 handballs, 13 marks for the Blues player there. So well done to Sam Doherty on that performance. Those marks helping the Blues get this one over the line. Now we go to the game on the King's birthday public holiday. Melbourne versus Carlton. I'm not going to call this the King's birthday game anymore. I'm calling this game the Neil Danaher game from this point going forward. So in the 2025 edition of the Neil Danaher game between Melbourne and Collingwood, we had a 1-point thriller. Final scores in this one: Melbourne 10-11-71, Collingwood 11-6-72. Pies your winner by 1 point here in this one. Melbourne, very good effort keeping a top side like Collingwood team who were first on the ladder at bay for the majority of the game, being able to tag Nick Dacos and get him off the board. But in the end, the class of Collingwood pulls through just enough in the end to get the win. So Melbourne, another tough loss for Melbourne. And I'm going to talk about this now. I'm going to talk about how these losses are starting to add up for Melbourne. These are losses that are starting to add up. You lose one by a couple of points here. You lose another by 5 points here. You lose one by a goal here. That's suddenly 12 premiership points are raised off the board. And for Collingwood, that's 4 premiership points that they've snuck out the back door with in this one. So well done to the Pies on getting the win here. Melbourne, unfortunately, on the wrong end once again, even after playing another fantastic game of football. So my player of the game in this one is going to go to Josh Dacos from Collingwood. 128 AFL fantasy, 34 touches, 25 kicks, 9 handballs, 11 marks, and 2 tackles for Josh Dacos. Now we move into week 14, round 14 of the 2025 AFL season. The teams on the bye, there are 4 teams on the bye this week. We have Collingwood, Richmond, Sydney, and Gold Coast all on the bye this week. And then we start on the Thursday night between St Kilda and the Western Bulldogs. This one could be a lot closer than the line suggests in this one. I think Doggies will pull it out in the end, though. It's the Thursday night game. I'm going to give a margin. I'm going to say Doggies win this by 20 points. That is going to be a very hotly contested game all throughout, with a late pull away by the Doggies as St Kilda try and go forward to get the win. Friday night, a real classic at Tasmania. University of Tasmania Stadium in Launceston. Hawthorn versus Adelaide. This is special. This one does not need to be in Tasmania. This one needs to be at a big ground in a big town, unfortunately. Tasmania, this is a big game now, and it should be at the MCG. Unfortunately, it's in Tasmania, and since it is in Tasmania, I will be going Hawthorn. Then we jump to Saturday. Brisbane versus GWS at the Gabba. Brisbane playing outstandingly well this year, playing unstoppable football. Only really a couple of teams who I think are at their level. I think Adelaide's one of them. I think Collingwood's one of them. I think Geelong might be one of them as well. So those are the only teams who can stop them. GWS, as I said, hanging on to top 8 spot at the moment. I think they will fall out with their body count going up every week. So GWS taking another loss in this one to Brisbane. Then at the MCG, we have Essendon and Geelong. Geelong will be out for this one. They will be gunning for this one. A good, strong performance by the Bombers, I think, is on the card. But I think Geelong, in the end, too classy, too sexy for the Essendon Football Club in that one. So Geelong take the win here. Oh, here we go. Saturday night. Round 14. North Melbourne versus Fremantle. And again, this is the second home game that North Melbourne purchased from the West Australian side. So this is a North home game at Optus Stadium against the Fremantle Dockers. I think, even with it being a North home game, sure, they got the win at home, technically at home over West Coast, even though they are miles and miles away from the north of Melbourne. They got the win over West Coast, but I don't think they get the win over Fremantle. I think Fremantle just too good for them, so Fremantle will take the win in that one. Then we have our two games on the Sunday. We start with one that suddenly got very interesting down at the Adelaide Oval on the 2:50 slot on Sunday. It is the Power and the Demons. And this one is one that I think Melbourne, their form is just so good at the moment. Even when they are losing, they're playing great football. So I have to say I'm going to take Melbourne in that one. Final game for round 14. West Coast vs Carlton from Optus Stadium. So 2 games at Optus Stadium this week. West Coast are a shell of their former self from 10 years ago, from 6-7 years ago, and Carlton are a team who are looking like they're on the improve at the moment. So with that being said, I think this is a very strong game for the Blues to win. I think West Coast will provide a little bit of a challenge early. If their goal kicking gets up, they should be in contention, but easy should go to the way of the Blues in this one. So we'll go recap all of those predictions for the week. So on Thursday night, we have the Doggies winning by 20 over St Kilda. On Friday night, we have Hawthorn beating the Crows in Tasmania. Saturday, we have Brisbane beating GWS, Geelong beating Essendon, Fremantle beating North Melbourne. And then on Sunday, we have Melbourne beating Port Adelaide in Adelaide and Carlton beating West Coast at Optus Stadium. And again, the teams on the bye are Collingwood, Richmond, Sydney and the Gold Coast Suns. So that's all I have for you this week. It's been a pleasure talking football with you all again, and I'll see you all next week.